character and mood. Very much like your domestic cat at home. There's so many different meanings to the movement of a tail. But getting back to territory size, you take an area that is far more sparsely vegetated or a lot drier, you will find that leopards will have a much larger territory. They need to cover more ground to large prides, and they can't subsist on small prey up into one or two mouthfuls. The energy dynamics just won't work because the amount of energy that they put out in the hunt needs to be doubled going back in, so that they can not only fill their belly but gain enough energy to hunt again. Whereas a leopard, being the type of cat that it is, doesn't need to expend very much energy in the hunt. So if it wanted to kill a francolin, which is a small game bird, or a dove or a mongoose, or they can have a lot of smaller meals. We have a population of leopard that I'm still waiting to hear whether they actually decided that they're a separate subspecies down in the Cape, in the mountains of the Cape. And while there are antelope and things that live in those mountains, those leopard feed mostly on hares and birds and probably lizards and small reptiles and things. And so there isn't really a consistent figure of how big a leopard's territory will be. I don't think anybody heard me. Question coming from the other side of the planet, California. Hello, Sarah. Coming from California, wanting to know if there's any part of the kill, any part of the carcass that the leopard will not eat. And that depends. Because it depends on what it is that it's eating. A small carcass like this is a duiker. It's one of the small or dwarf antelope. Poor thing this time. But it's relatively small. He's able to get through even the joints of the long bones. He's probably able to get through pretty much most of the skull. He will probably swallow the hooves, although, as I was saying earlier, the hoof and the bone, all those bone fragments, stomach acid will digest some of it, but in his dung from now over the next few days, his dung is going to consist mostly of hair and hoof and the undigestible material. So if the horns were going to be eaten, if there were any little horns. But generally the skull, a leopard will open up the skull, will break open the back of the brain case to get to the brain, and it will chew the snout, but it won't really go for the teeth. Sometimes you'll find teeth in dung, if it's, say, for example, a very small and young animal where the bone hasn't really hardened that much and it's able to get through that. With the duiker, the size, I would imagine that it could get through most of it. It'll be able to get through the top of the jawbone where it joins the skull, where the masseter muscles join onto the bottom jawbone, but it probably won't eat the front part of the jawbone where the molars are. The upper part of the skull, the whole nasal cavity will be eaten, but it won't eat the eye sockets and the sort of frontal part of the brain case. If it was a baby impala, which is maybe about the same size as the duiker, it would probably eat the entire skull because it's a lot softer and the teeth haven't really developed. The teeth are very, very brittle. As we drive around over the next few weeks, when I do find some leopard dung, or lion dung for that matter, I'll be able to show you the pieces that come out of it. Unfortunately, at first, the dung is very, very messy because the first thing that any of the cats go for are the soft parts, the rump, and some of the internal organs. So the dung that comes out within the first part of eating a carcass is unpleasant, to put it mildly. He's been watching something down there quite a bit behind us. later on, sometimes you'll have a leopard, it'll have a kill in a tree for several days, and it'll come back to it, and eventually all that's really left is skin and bone and hair and a little bit of meat here and there, maybe a little bit of gristle, and that's the kind of dung that when it comes out, it's relatively clean. And then, of course, being the rainy season, it washes out all the messy stuff. And sometimes when it's dried out after a while, it's quite amazing because you can sift through it, and as long as you've got gloves on and you can handle the concept of it, because it's not really that yucky. It's interesting finding the little pieces of whatever it was that they ate. It's how one learns. It's a learning process. It's a way to discover how nature works and what actually doesn't work. I suppose the other part of an animal that a leopard's not going to eat is going to be the spinal column, the vertebra. But as I said earlier, it depends on the size of an animal. For an impala, for example, an adult impala, a leopard's going to eat off the bone, but edges of the rib cage, pretty much the same part of the skull as I was mentioning. But you will sometimes find almost a fully finished with an adult impala. It might chew on some of the leg bones and things, but the bone, being an adult, the bone gets rather dense, and they might try and crack it to get to some of the marrow in is left behind. And those little bits that are left behind just get crunched up by hyena. Now, hyena are quite unique in the mammal world. They pick up, to an extent, are not only scavengers. They're pretty good hunters. And last night we had a couple of hyena tailing the herds of impala out on the open area near camp called Quarantine. And I've no doubt they probably had one or two little babies. Should take a photograph. Could, although it's not great with my little camera. Can you see the nicks in his ears? Both of his ears have got very distinctive tears and nicks in them. With the spot pattern. Of course, sometimes when you have a leopard and you know it's particular case, that who it is, without having to revert to finally looking at spot patterns. There are the spots above the eye. You just need to choose either eye. The corner of the eye, as he's now looking to the side there, you can see there's a very particular little configuration of spots just on the corner of the eye. Even the spots on his ear, I can see just on his right ear, that one spot on the tip of his right ear, and on his left ear there are two spots there. They're very distinctive features. But before you even get to the spot pattern, those little nicks and tears in the ear become a unique feature, because there can't be another leopard that can go through the same kind of trials and tribulations of leopard life and get scratched and torn in exactly the same way. But he is a magnificent cat. Look at them. Even his eyebrows have got muscles in them. Specially designed cutting teeth that he's using now, known as carnassials. Those, what we call tricuspid, or those triangular shaped sharp cutting teeth in the side that are the equivalent of molars and premolars. Cutting through skin and gristle and probably bone even. Mark your WildEarth. Stand by one. Sorry, repeat please. Yeah, there was one in Yari at Gary Dam. There was in Dove there, but he moved up towards Spiffles or Cutline. I lost him, but I'm with the Ingwe now on Gallagher Shortcut. Okay, copied. Yeah, I'm Biffles or Cutline side on Gallagher Shortcut. Go ahead. Thank you for the email, Brenda. Brenda's in Pennsylvania. And Brenda would like to learn a little bit more about hunting tactics. Do they drop down from above? How do they hunt? Should I start that one with it depends? Because it does, it depends on many, many different things. Brenda, they're very much opportunistic hunters. So any possible scenario you could think of is a method of hunting for a leopard. And they are known to drop out of trees onto prey. It's not a very common method of hunting. That's more a case of seizing the opportunity because it's there, leopards sleeping up in a tree to get away from the heat and the flies, not necessarily waiting for something, although there are times when certain trees are flowering that it attracts certain antelope to come and feed on the fallen flowers underneath the tree. And I've known but only in specific areas where these trees grow, because it wouldn't happen here. We've only got one. It's a tree known as a sausage tree, and the flowers, very big, lovely maroon colored flowers. When the flowers fall, they snapped up by duiker and bushbuck and nyala. And up in East Africa, where these trees are quite prolific, and of course they're huge, massive trees up there, it's been known for leopard to do that there. I have to be honest, here in the Kruger area, even at home, which is also Kruger area in the Timbavati, I can't recall ever seeing it. Generally, the leopard around here will stalk their prey. Let me start from the beginning. A leopard, it's generally a solitary cat, lives in relatively thick bush, like a cheetah or somewhat like a lion. Don't quite run like cheetah do, but they do run after their prey. Leopard needs to get really, really close. Stalking and pouncing is their game, and they will use obstacles, they'll use stealth, and they will use their most amazing, incredible show of patience to get close to their prey, and they'll take one or two leaps and they'll bring it down if they can. A leopard cannot run very, very far. It doesn't have the stamina for it, it doesn't have the musculature for it. It has musculature for stalking and pouncing, and of course the strength to take its prey up a tree if it's threatened by other predators. There are leopards that have been known to catch fish, hook them out of the water, catfish in particular, hook them out of the water in drying up water holes and pans. But not every leopard will do that. It's only a leopard that has somehow learned how to do it, maybe somehow from its mother, or something clicked in its brain and it learned how to do it. Animal behavior is unique, or rather the behavior of an animal is unique to that particular animal. While generally we can talk about leopards, every single leopard does its own thing in a different way. I was talking a little bit earlier about certain male leopards that would lie on top of a termite mound until they intimidated the warthog enough to get the warthog out of the termite mound. And not everyone will do that. Sometimes one has to, we're looking at an animal, we don't necessarily mean that that is how it is for every member of that species, because they are individual, thinking, feeling, motivated creatures that act on spur of a moment. I think we're going to need to move a little bit because he's now put his head in a place where we're not going to see much. I'm going to try if I can move forward. There was a time many years ago when the leopard, because we used to spend so much time with them and we used to follow them hunting, that they accustomed to the being would actually use the vehicle to help them hunt. So they would walk alongside the vehicle and take an opportunity if there was impala or something nearby. Let me just stand up. I've got this big bunch of sticks in front of me. No, we're not going anywhere. Now, just north of Mvula, if you come, which side are you coming from? If you come down